Hey, what's up to the point, listeners? Hopefully your new year is off to a great start, like mine is. Man, I always feels good at the beginning of the year, like because you got the whole entire year in front of you, right? And like you got these big plans, and you're like starting to execute on some of this stuff. And you heard from our last episode that one of the things I've started to do since last year every year is start with a trip. And I took a trip to Costa Rica with my good friend Tommy Mello and my wife, and I'm sure I had a great time. But we're recording this before the end of the year, so it's a little bit weird. But I'm excited to talk to our guest and talk about his story. I'm always trying to find like the unique part of the story. And the last part of the year last year with some of the episodes, we kind of switched it up on how we were choosing our guests. And so I don't typically talk to the guests, ahead of time and kind of understand their story, because most of the time I know who they are already and I already understand their story. But I got my new friend Will on the episode today, and I'm excited to talk about his story. It's a quite the interesting journey you had, dude, and I'm excited to get into like some of the younger days and like the shit that you went through before this thing started scaling. But to give some perspective to the listeners, start plumbing HVAC business over in Maryland, Annapolis, I think is where you guys started the business out of. Fort Meade, I think you're also in. But finished your business just north of 17 million bucks. Focused on the retail or retail. That's roofing. Focused on the residential space. That's not always was the case. And then he's got a sight set on this $24 million goal for this year. And so, naturally I want to know like how, like, what's the plan? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? Is it, expand service? Is it expand location? Is it fixing operations? Is it sales? Or what is it? We're going to talk through all that shit. Mm-hmm. So Will, number one, welcome, brother. I'm excited to have you on.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I don't throw up during this. I'm a little nervous, but I'm sure after the first question, we'll just roll right through it. So all good.
And so it's, I want to make sure I say it. It's Staton, right? Wait, because you have
Stop Waiting, Call Staton.
Stop Waiting, Call Staton. Yeah, 100%. Stop Waiting, Call Staton. And that's heating, cooling, and plumbing. So, so let's just go ahead and jump into it a little bit. And what I want to do is think about, and by the way, you're going to be fine because this is your first podcast, right?
Yes, correct.
Yes. First, this is that you can check a box for an accomplishment for the year, dude.
Yeah, big stuff. Big way to start off the year for sure.
So, it's a cool story. Some of it's going to be relatable to you. I wish Chad was on here because some of this will be what he'll relate to, with it being a family business, second generation. But he's also in his logo with family as well, just like you are.
Yeah.
With your dad. But before we get into that, I kind of set the tone for at least where the business just finished and where you're heading and what you do and where you're located. But let's maybe just kind of dig in a little bit to before I start digging into your mom, and your teenage years, and the addiction stuff that you went through, and kind of getting into the business and like repairing a relationship with your dad and like all that, good shit. Let's like just kind of give a quick overview of the your journey, like when you got into the trades, and to where it is today. And again, I'm going to walk through a bunch of this shit with you. So I'm just trying to like, give me the Cliff Notes version.
Okay. So let me start kind of like when I started in the trades, right?
Yeah. So just like, you're now transitioning into anything trade related, plumbing, whatever it is. So like, let's just start there and kind of walk us through, a kind of a little quick part of your journey. I'll pick apart anything I want to along the way.
Yeah, sure. So I guess, my father's obviously a plumber. I grew up, going to, idolizing my father, right? Going around to job sites with him. He did new construction plumbing. That was his niche, right?
Got it.
And it was basically him and another guy, and just wanted to work alongside of him. So I did that, here and there through my, teenage years and stuff like that. I got out of school. I was not the most studious of students for sure. So I pretty much knew my path, and I wanted to be just like that. So, I worked for a short period of time, worked for a different company when I was in my early 20s. And then I went back to work with my father and with the goal of always wanting to grow his company, right? Take it over. That was my like goal from a very young age, right? And started to hustle, right? Like I was kind of monkey see, monkey do. My dad did new construction. That's what I thought. I just was going to roll right into that. So
Yeah.
um, just started just hitting the pavements, just meeting people, uh, getting out there and getting a name out there. Because my dad never did any marketing. I mean, look, pen and paper. Hopefully, he built somebody, and it was just very loosey goosey, And my dad was very supportive. He was like, "Hey, look, you want to grow, do your thing," and that's what we did. Like I got into the trades doing new construction plumbing, and kind of just grew the company from there. And had no idea what I'm doing. I'm still trying to figure out, to this day.
Dude, you have yeah, okay, so that's cool because I kind of set you up to blow through it pretty fast and didn't give you a whole lot of extra context because I want to pick apart some of the story. Not that's probably not the right word. I just want to dig into parts of the story that I
Yeah.
think are going to be the most interesting for everyone to hear.
Mhm.
Uh, as it sits today, the business is successful, and the fact that you're saying I'm still trying to figure shit out. I think a lot of people are listening to this podcast because they're still trying to figure shit out too. Well, right, so
Mhm.
that's why people listen in the first place. Um, and I just want to dig into like some of the early stuff, and then you were like, I appreciate you being super transparent with me when you and I got to talk just kind of about the history of you, and then the history of the business, and like adding HVAC, and there's a shit show, and like and so many people in here can relate. I
Mm.
also think that you can uncover some like potential pitfalls for someone this year when they're thinking
Yeah.
about adding a trade, whether it be HVAC, plumbing, electrical, whatever, don't matter. So we hit on some of that stuff. But you told me early on, okay? Actually, real quick, how old are you?
I'm 41 years old.
41. So so you've still got some runway, dude, like to really build and scale this thing too. You're
Mhm.
41, you're young. I'm 46, I'm young. Okay. Uh,
I feel yeah. I feel like I'm just starting to come into my prime. To be quite honest, that's
Dude,
how
I'm telling you,
I
you're
really
supposed.
do feel that way.
Well, the 40s were, or what I heard, that it was supposed to be like your peak earning years, right? Like you kind of went through your 20s and shit. You started to learn, where you land professionally in your 30s, and you figure your shit out. And then by the 40s, you're like, okay, dude, like I'm like you're in the best position to earn max wealth in that time, or moving on. But that's like your
Mhm.
first decade where you can really start to create some wealth.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, dude. I feel the same way. I'm in them. I've been in it, and I've felt the same way. So, but it was weird when you crossed that 40 mark. Like when your age now starts with a four, like that shit was weird.
Bro, when you're 20 and you look at 40, you're like, oh man, But now that I'm
No,
40, I look at 60 even different. You know what I mean? I don't look at it the same way.
100%, dude. 100%. I feel the
Perspective.
exact same way. Yeah, totally feel the same way. Yeah, because when my mom was 40, I was like, God dang, my mom was old.
Oh,
And
100%.
and now I'm like, no, dude, I'm still like, I can still
Yeah,
hang.
dude, I'm just getting it. I feel like I'm just getting it.
So listen, like talking about moms, let's go back to your mom. So I'm gonna take you there for just a second. Now, when you were, I think you said 13, and was when your mom passed away, and you were 13 years old, right?
Yeah, so my mom was she was the rock of the family,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
anytime my brother and I wanted to do something or something was going on, we would go to dad. My dad's a real he's not saying my mom was not, but just a nice guy. He's just
Yeah.
he's a little bit of a pushover. But he'd be like, now you got to talk to mom. So she was the glue, definitely the family. She ended up, she contracted leukemia. Look, didn't smoke, didn't drink, healthy. It was the 90s. She did calisthenics. She was very much in shape and got leukemia. And uh, right away went to John Hopkins and 8 months later ended up passing. So,
Jeez. And so you're young, right? And that's a lot to process at 13 years old.
mhm.
Um, and and this, there's no way you were prepared for that. I mean, really, it's hard anyway, but especially at that age, like mentally, there's no way you're prepared to, to deal with that. Especially, saying that she's the rock of the family, and it's like now life changes. And the
Big
reason I
time.
want to talk about this is because, like, to me, I just had like a conversation with my son last night, and it's nowhere near like about what you're saying, but it's he's 14, right? And so like it's really pivotal moment for his autopilot, his brain, and the way that he thinks about things and the effort that he puts in. And like I'm trying to build his autopilot to be a doer, right? To
Mhm.
not just think it, but actually do it. And
Mhm.
that's not easy when you're distracted by things. And it's not easy if you don't have someone to lead you, And so I just having this conversation with him, like, I'm seeing some real talent in him as a wrestler.
Mhm.
And I wrestled, and was a great wrestler. And nobody told me that early on. Like, so I didn't get my autopilot created. My wrestling coach is one that actually taught me, but it took me a year. So I'm like trying to get to him early. I'm saying, son, I see some real talent in you. Like, not just telling you because you're my son. I'm telling you, like, you got something, dude. And if you just applied a little bit more effort, to even just, he's doing enough, but if he does more, he'll advance faster. And I'm trying to like build, this confidence in him. And I mean it, like I meant it when I said it
Yeah.
to him. But I'm there to lead him through it because I didn't want him to lose a year like I'm doing. He's a freshman in high school. I'm like, dude, you get to wrestle varsity your freshman year and you can accomplish something really great, but you're going to put a little bit more effort in than what just the basic effort is. And so I'm leading him. Now and he's 14.
Mhm.
I'm thinking you at 13. I'm not sure if it was earlier or later in when you're 13. But the point is you got to go through high school now, which are like pivotal years for you kind of creating who you're going to be as a human being.
Mhm.
And you turned a little bit in the wrong direction. Well,
A little
you kind
bit.
of had some hiccups, bro.
A little
And
bit.
sure, from there, kind of how things progress, but you end up, getting into drugs and creating an addiction and shit like that. And again, and listen, your dad, like my dad, total pushover, right?
Total.
Uh, and was kind of wanted to be more of a friend to me, I think, than a parent. And I love my dad, and but he'd make an excuse for me if I asked him to, right?
Yeah.
And that is not helpful when you're trying to lead somebody.
No.
There's got to be some accountability and some leadership. So you're going down, and I'm not putting that on your dad. I'm just not talking about me
Yeah.
and
I know. Yeah.
but you're now on this path, right? And you're trying to figure things out. You're young and you start getting into drugs and stuff, and probably because you're just trying to figure shit out with your life. I want to talk about though for a minute, and it's not so much about the addiction as it is how you progressed through it. And I'm going to touch on like in this story on how some of this stuff connected to you today, like
Oh
today,
yeah.
right? In the
Big time.
position today.
100%.
So maybe like let's just talk through. Okay, you I think it is. You said you got into addiction, and if you want to talk about what it was, I'll let you. I don't care about that part.
Yeah.
Addiction's addiction, but I think it was 21. It took you to 21 to like get your shit together and become
22.
22. Okay, so you get your shit together at 22. Now you you are if you're an addict, and you and I talked about this on the call. I have like this theory, right, around addiction, and you think about this. Think about how hard it would be for some people when they become addicts, like how hard they work just to get the next fix. Like if
Real
you
hard, buddy.
just fucking apply that to
Bro.
like something constructive,
They're usually pretty successful.
that's what I'm saying. And you think about even like drug dealers. Drug dealers work really hard in super high stressful situations with a shitload of risk. I mean, what do you think business is? You
It's
could
the
do
same
it on
thing.
but you're thinking fast money, easy money. You don't have to have a skill for this thing, but like if you just applied the same effort, you could be really successful at things. And there's a plenty of very successful business owners that were former dealers and addicts. Plenty
Mhm.
of them. I know them.
Mhm.
And so it proves out my theory on this thing. Like shit, it's the same effort. It just might take you a little bit longer over here, but at least it's on the up and up. And so you prove out my theory on this. Not that I'm saying you're a drug dealer, but I'm saying like you go through these addictions, you're learning behaviors,
Yeah.
right? And now here you are, well, obviously you're well past that at 41 years old, but I'm going to dig into like what is it that you feel like from that moment set the tone for your work ethic, post like, hey, cool, you probably messed up the relationship with your dad a little bit, or like or you got to repair these things with your dad or with relationships. Cause if you go down that path, you ruin relationships and shit like that. But like, what is it that you kind of took away from that you apply to just your business sense today? Like, you got to still have a little bit of that hustle in you, but it's just a little bit refined hustle.
So that's a good question. So I will tell you, and I don't want to come off some type of way, but I'll just be totally transparent. Part of, I think, why people, and I'm sure normal people struggle with this too, is having struggling with a negative sense of self, right? How you perceive yourself and being satisfied. Always looking for that extra, whatever you want to call it, right? And in business, like I run into people all the time and they're like, they knew me from my past or they've watched the company progress, especially over a short, we've grown quite a bit just over in like a 4 year span since we switched to all service, right? And people come up to me like, oh, dude, this is so awesome and blah, blah, blah. And, and I'm just being transparent. Like, I don't feel that way. I feel like I have so much more to go, and maybe it's part of just like, um, and I have learned gratitude, and that's helped me stay sober throughout the years. But always wanting that more, like never being comfortable, knowing that my full potential is still not reached. And part of being a recovering addict is kind of having that little hole. You kind of have, you just don't. You never feel satisfied, to be quite honest. I mean, it's kind of why I use drugs and alcohol. It was I was trying to fill something, this endless void, within me, and dude, I would, and you talk about like, dude, I would come up with some crafty shit to get what I need.
I'm
You know what I'm
sure.
saying? Like some crafty way. The mind is a powerful thing, and how that translated into business is being able. So first, you can read people because I used to hang around people that were, I mean, not of the utmost character,
Sure. Sure.
So, and I myself was that as well, right? So I have learned to read a room, negotiate better, uh, ask, right? I'll always ask questions. I mean, that's how I've learned to do this. Is I'm not afraid to ask, right? Um, and Another thing that I've learned from more recovery, right, is like I had to take personal responsibility for my actions. Like Jocko's got that book, Extreme Ownership.
Extreme ownership. Yep.
Yeah, man, dude, look, this is the deal. This is the deal. A lot of people lose their mothers and fathers and stuff like that, and yeah, there was a lot of conditions. Like when my mother passed, my dad worked 7 days a week, all the time, dude. Like he was trying to provide for me and my brother. I think that's kind of how he dealt with it too, to be quite honest. But you know,
Yeah. I think that's a pretty normal. That's a pretty normal thing that
he
people
just
do.
buried himself in work.
Yeah.
He came from an old school, very old school father and mother, and he buried himself in work. And I was left to my own devices. I pretty much could do whatever I wanted to.
Yeah.
And but all that aside, I had to learn when I got sober. Like I had to learn to take absolute effing. Can we cuss on this? Is this a cuss friendly show, or we're not cussing, right?
100%. No. You can absolutely say fuck
I just
if
want
that's
to be okay.
yes. Yeah. It's admissible on the
Okay,
to the
I'm
point.
gonna I'm gonna try to be me. Okay, but I mean, like I did absolute take extreme ownership of that, and like no one, I can't fix anybody, right? I cannot fix anybody. Like you were talking about your son, you can set the conditions, you can lay out the path. They're gonna have to walk that path, and that's the
That's
same
right.
with me. When I learned a different way, like they were like, "Hey, look, dude," and I relate recovery a lot to business, right? You can't stay clean without a good group of people. You cannot grow a business without a great group of people. if you think you can do all this yourself, honestly, past $1 million, it's just not. It's going to be a mess. You're going to be a mess, and you're going to be miserable. But so yeah, I've learned a lot of a lot of the. It's funny when you get clean, you try to break because this is the deal. The drugs are just but a symptom.
Yeah.
Like you have to change who you are. You have to rewire, and just like in business, you have to. I had to rewire especially the last 4 years. I had to learn real quick. Made a lot of mistakes, but like recovery, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been sober 19 years, 20 years in August, God willing, right?
Yep, that's
I've made
awesome.
a ton of mistakes. The one mistake I haven't made is I haven't picked up over it. Well, just like in business, I have made a lot of mistakes. I try to learn from them, and I haven't gone bankrupt. So I still have a chance every single day. You know what I mean? So
Dude, so I
it's
appreciate
all
that
about perspective. It's all about perspective, and
perspective.
perception.
Yeah, and then effort, and follow effort, dude. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like it's, but you like covered a few really cool things. You talked about the people that you're around situationally. Uh, at that time, you're just learning. You're soaking the things up on how to be, you know, fit in to that group.
Mhm.
All of this for you is trying to fill that hole.
Yeah,
You're just filling it with whatever you pick the thing. You're filling it with it,
yeah, 100%.
whether it's business. Because by the way, business can be an addiction for people
It
too,
can.
right?
It can fill a
And
hole.
and you filling the thing with the thing. It's whatever it is.
Yeah.
But what my point is like, you're talking, almost 20, 20 years. So congrats. I mean, that's 2 decades, bro. Like you did it. Like you kicked its ass, and you didn't let it define you. You know what I mean?
No.
But shit, you were in your 20s. Like people, I don't think that you go to college, you got shit figured out. Like I was nowhere even near to figuring shit out in college. The only thing I figured out was I knew how to party pretty hard, and I was really
Yeah.
good at being social. And and who would have thought that carried me into my career, and a sales, career. But what it boils down to is I'm just very personable. I enjoy being around people.
Yep.
I legit, care about people, and want to have so it's like a genuine thing for me to be this. And it's a genuine thing for me to want to have a podcast and do these things, every single week because I want everybody to hear the stories and hope that they can take something from it. And that fills my cup. That fills my hole, right? Whatever
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
So telling the story like this is hopefully filling somebody's hole that's on the other end of this microphone, right? Like that's why we're talking about it. And otherwise, what good's your fucking story other than it's a success case for you, right? And like we should share these things. It's like when I think I told you this. One of my buddies came on last year, and we talked about his the suicide of his daughter at 13
Yeah.
years.
You told me. Yeah. Hmm.
And like what good would that have been if we didn't go and share it for somebody else to hear it? And I'm grateful that we did. And I'm grateful he talked about it. So the way I look at this is like, dude, you're just getting started at 21. You know what I mean? Like you're real early in just being an adult. Let's be honest. Like I don't care. They say 18 is being adult. Fact, like 20s, you're
Yeah.
just
I
figuring.
don't look at it. I know. I agree with you on that.
And
100%.
and so but you learned in that time frame of going through a very hard thing to kick, and you can carry that into business with you.
Yeah.
And you said it's perspective. It is perspective. It's like if you've never been an addict, and I've never been an addict,
Hmm.
but I've been around addiction,
Hmm.
and I understand how difficult it is to kick it.
Very difficult.
It's a disease,
Yeah.
like there's
100%.
so it's very difficult to overcome that. Well,
Hmm.
shit, you overcome that, man. Like you can overcome all kinds of stuff. And I think you get the pull from that, like because difficult situations come up. You've been through them. You started with plumbing. You had HVAC. That shit didn't go as planned, which we'll talk about. You got to figure out how to get through it. Well, shit, I've been through much harder, so we
Hmm.
can figure this stuff out. And then what's good is, I don't know about this about you. If you can't learn the difference between managers, in your business and leaders in your business, and there's a difference. And what am I? Where do I fall? And just because I have a position that's in leadership doesn't mean I'm a good leader. Not always. Right? Or we put people in leadership roles because they were good technicians who should never be in a leadership role, but we just tried to advance them through the business.
I have a good story on that, dude. 100%.
Well, but you have to be able to recognize it, right? And so
Mhm.
you're coming in to lead this business to the promised land, but you get to pull from an incredible uh, past
Mhm.
full of all kinds of shit. So talking about, your mother passed away so young, and how you're, kind of left to be more independent and you got to get away with anything and you get into addiction, you get through it, boom, cool. That set the tone for your life. It still comes down to, no matter who's listening on the other end of this microphone, perspective. Like pick your shitty, childhood, right? We all got something in there, probably.
Mhm.
So I want to just shift into like more business mode now. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you come into this business, you're second generation, because you with your dad. You guys now have, you have the new branding you have the branding on the business. It's got you and your dad on it. It's legacy, like it's a
Mhm.
heritage business, which I love.
Yeah.
Um, makes you proud, because you guys got yourself on the vehicle together. Um, but you guys start with plumbing. All right. And I think was it in 2020 that you guys were like cutting new construction? Is that when, was that, did I get the year right?
End of 2020, decided to do it. Yeah.
Okay. And that was like 3 million ish bucks or something. I can't remember if that's
Three
the,
million with 300,000 in PPP, so it's 2.6.
holy shit. Okay.
So
Damn.
2.7 top line real revenue, right?
Okay. So I'm going to double dip on this question, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
You got that. And
Dude.
then the next year you decided to add HVAC to the mix. Is that right? Was it in 21?
January 2021.
Jesus, that's a lot of change. So help me understand how you're navigating this. Obviously, we're in the COVID shit. We're kind of coming out the back
Yeah,
end of that thing. Kinda. There's still weird at the end of the year.
yeah,
And we're kind of coming out of it. And you say, hey, cool, let's cut new construction. Hey, cool, let's add HVAC too.
yeah.
Bro, help me understand what the hell you were thinking.
Well, again, this goes back to so the one thing. So I grown that took the company over from my dad. At this point, he was uh, fully out by 2020. That was his last year. 75 years old. Um, and we had grown to about whatever, almost 3 million in new construction, and I hated it. It's everything I had dreamed of. Like I wanted to do all these high. We did real super high end houses. Like I did the last house I did was Kevin Plank's house. It was huge. But anyways, that was the last job we actually finished. But I just wanted to get out of it so bad, dude, for so many reasons. I started learning more about the like residential home service business, and I always knew our customer service was really good, but I didn't know anything about running what a service company was, and I heard about ServiceTitan. So I was like, okay, cool. And this is look to give some people some advice of looking back. I'm going to tell this story, and then I'm going to say, hey, if I had a crystal ball, this is what I might have done different, you know.
Perfect.
So 2020 comes, like, let's get on ServiceTitan. Sign up for ServiceTitan June of 2020. Went through the implementation. After that, couldn't figure out ServiceTitan, right? What I have learned, sat through all them classes and all that stuff, and what I have learned is if you want to use ServiceTitan very well, you need to either be the ServiceTitan guru in your business or have someone that really knows how to use ServiceTitan at a high level. Because I'll be honest, I don't think most people do, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm blessed to have great people in that position. But anyways, got on it. I couldn't figure out how to use it. I wanted to bring on HVAC because this is how naive I was. Plumbing and HVAC, they're similar. They sound good, like let's do it, right? At the same time, let's cut out new construction. I wrote a letter, like literally one day was like, I'm going to write a letter to all the builders. Hey, thank you, but no thank you. I did finish up all the obligations I had, right? At this point, I did zero marketing, right? I did have a GMB page that I'd set up maybe a year or two prior, just at a sheer, like, I don't even know why, but I did it, right? Uh, and went full bore, dude. And brought on HVAC, knew nothing about the business of HVAC, much less the trade of heating and air conditioning. And then, obviously before this, made an announcement to the company, hey, we're doing this. Um, Most people stayed on to help finish out some of the projects. at the same time bringing on marketing, pumping a lot of money when the money from the service wasn't coming in at the same, they didn't like flow together, because I didn't understand, again, didn't understand. I mean, look, at this point, dude, I didn't even know what a P&L, I knew what it was. I didn't know how to read it. I didn't know what gross margin, gross profit, EBITDA, net profit, labor percentage, all the stuff, had zero clue. Okay. Flew down to Sarasota, took Terry Nichols' 3-day, this is how you run an HVAC class. I found it very informative. Got a binder about this big, right? And, it's,
Dude, Terry's a good dude. I like Terry.
I love, dude, so do I. I love the class, dude. It was praxis. Dude, I'll be honest, anybody starting, Terry's great.
Yeah, Terry's
Uh,
awesome.
and came back and I'm like, HVAC got memberships and service and demand up and flip and flip. And it was just like, oh my God. I had to learn that real fast and started marketing that. And the first year we did 7 million, right? Which I guess was end of 2021. Uh, and dude, I mean, if you want me to go into the mistakes, I can go into the mistakes, but
I'm gonna ask you about it
yeah,
because I mean, first off, I didn't know the ServiceTitan thing. If you told me, I totally forgot about that because like you added all kinds of shit in the 12-month period
and went
of
to all same day service for plumbing too. Got out of new construction, you
I
know.
mean, and maybe some of the risk is because you got blinders on. You don't know what you don't know, right? So you're like kind of like, oh, this all sounds like a good idea, but you're not thinking through it. Like this is a problem that I've had for forever.
I'm
Is
impulsive. I'm very like, hey, I got a good idea.
yeah. Are you an integrator?
No,
Okay, see, that's like I'm telling you, and that you know how
zero.
important
We're
that.
in EOS. We are in EOS,
Okay, cool. So you got your rocks, you got all your shit. Okay,
dude. We've been in it for a year and a half.
that helps you. That certainly is helpful. I did it 2 years ago with our team. Actually, we just kind of went through a similar process with our leadership team. Not the same US process, but very similar. So there's some of that stuff still like is absolutely works today to
Yeah,
help with just KPIs and like who's accountable for what to get to the end goal. Um, but yeah, so you bring on a new CRM, which is already cumbersome. Like the lift on ServiceTitan is enormous,
enormous.
and you do got to have somebody in house. Okay, you're making a switch from new construction to service. You're adding on another, trade, and you're just trying to figure it all out at once. And by the way, you're trying to learn how to read a P&L.
How
So,
to run a service call? How to book a call? What is performance dispatch? So
but listen, hang on a second. I also think there's an argument, dude, for jumping and building the parachute on the way down.
me too.
Now you probably would do it different today
I
because you
would,
know
I would,
today.
but I am more like, let's get the ball rolling.
Yep.
I'm kind of that guy, I have a high risk tolerance to a point. Some are way higher than mine, right? So I'm not like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree.
But I would argue that maybe you didn't do this. Like, if you were spinning like 12 plates, dude, and like, maybe you don't do it if you're not as high risk. And maybe you're still kind of like stuck in this smaller business trying to tiptoe your way through and figure things out. But
I I do think people. I think people have a tendency. Most operators who are former technicians, they and look, they overthink.
yeah.
They think themselves out of doing it. You gotta like. I mean, sometimes you just got to take a chance.
Analysis paralysis is
It's
what that is
100%.
called. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. Let's talk about the addition of HVAC, and even though that you're finished good, you went through some like shit operationally, like trying to figure out
Terrible.
it was a disaster. Like this was a disaster. I use air quotes because
Yeah.
it's in your terms. Um, now you're post mortem now, so you've
Mhm.
moved on.
Yeah,
There will be other operational challenges that you face as it scales.
for sure.
And Chad will tell you that same thing, obviously having been through it. But how did you like today? How did you, or now that you're past it, how did you rebuild like that operational backbone so that way you could grow HVAC without breaking the fucking business again? Like,
Yeah.
is it people you put in place? Is it processes? Just somebody own it? Like, you clearly learned, like, okay, this thing is broken because of XYZ. We fix that. So like
Yeah.
maybe talk about that fix.
Okay. So when I went down to Terry's class, he gives you a book on these KPIs, right? But then you hire these people that don't have the same mindset as you, that these are not obtainable or they're not doable, and they start dictating, and then that messaging filters down to the technicians, right? And uh, we weren't doing a good job holding accountable, being new in the business and a little gun shy, and yeah, Terry's saying you could do it, but then John, who's been in the industry for a long time and you think is really good, says,
Doesn't get that same message. Yeah, he doesn't get the same. Yeah,
he doesn't buy into it, right? And then that filters down. And this is one of the most dangerous things in a company. Is like you got a manager or a leader who doesn't buy in or believe, that messaging is going downhill, and that's really dangerous. And that's what happened in HVAC. You know, not pricing the services correctly, right? Um, Not pricing your services correctly, not understanding the sales process, right? Not having a refined sales process, right? Not having your marketing dialed in around it, and having bad leadership that's filtering the wrong messages down to the technicians who are then in the customers' homes and not doing a good job, uh, customer service and quality wise. And we literally cleaned house. There's not one person left from that, initial um, initial HVAC Staton expansion, however you want to call it. And we got people in here who do buy into the process, who have been a part of the results, right? And we hire differently now. Where before, like I tell you what, when we hire now, we just lay it out very transparent. I'm very, very, and I spend I love recruiting, right? It's what I do. I like connecting with people, uh, same as you. I love helping people as well. Like I really do. And I think it was that guy who was on your podcast, and it was Leland Smith, and that guy, was it Frank or whatever?
yeah, Frank DeMarco.
And I use this all the time. We will break our backs. If you're willing to get better, we'll break our backs, but we're not going to break our expectations. And we came together as a leadership team, and we said, look, these are the expectations. We know we can hit these, right? There's no excuse for not hitting them, and we're going to hire around them, and we're going to hold people accountable to hitting these. And it's just simple as that, right? It's just like Leland Smith says, and I use this all the time. I've talked to him, and he would be like, it would drive me crazy. He would say, "It's easy to do," and I'm like, "Dude, how is it fucking? This is not easy." He's like, "Will, it's easier to do. It's just easier not to do it." And I say that quote all the time. So resetting expectations, knowing that we can hit these KPIs, having a sales process, being priced correctly, um, learn vendor deals with your equipment, all these things that when I got into it, I didn't know. And I have learned through pain, through asking other people, raising your hand. If I'm the dumbest guy in the room, if I get in a room of people, I just ask questions. Because look, if you want to find the keys to success, just ask the questions. Everybody will tell you the answers, right? It's just like Tommy Mello said, and I loved it recently. His guys were getting on him so much about like, dude, why are you telling everybody all this stuff? He's like, well, I can tell everybody to go to the fucking gym every day, but that doesn't mean they're going to go. Because 95% or more are not going to do it or not even try with the analysis paralysis thing. So
Yeah, dude, that's so true. I love that you reference, Leland. I love Leland. Because I remember you telling me like you took advantage. He was on that podcast forever ago. And he dropped his cell,
he did.
and
I wrote that thing down.
good for you, man. Like good for you. That's why he dropped it, right?
Same.
And he actually, responded to you and helped you. Like, geez, that's weird.
Yeah.
But it's you actually talked about something that's really important, and I'm bummed Chad's not on here, and this is my fault because I've moved this thing. But he, uh, he's talked about how this trickle down affects your team, and this
Yeah.
is like as the business scales, it's like it's so important that everyone's dialed in to chasing whatever the goal is, and everybody's like bought into it.
Yeah.
and then you have measurables in place so that way those people understand how they are measuring up, for whatever they're responsible for towards that goal. And then if they're falling short for some reason, that they're getting the support that they need and feel cared about, things like that. And it is so important as these things scale that you have everybody bought in to the vision, and the mission of the business. Like that is so incredibly important. And if they can't get an answer that they need and they make a decision based on the values of your business, that you'll support that.
Mhm.
And I think that's very important. And it might not be the right call, but at least they use the right, the right method, and that is using your values to make a decision that they thought was the right call. And then you learn from it. You coach on it so that way you can make the decision differently. That's business. That's
Mhm.
going to happen. But what it's doing is, so Mike, we did a leadership exercise last week with, we had 25 leaders in town, at Rhino, and we worked through what our leadership values are. Okay, what are we going to be held to? What standard? And then we are responsible for rolling that down through our teams and living those values in our business, regardless of goal, right? Like those are the things that we're going to be. And I genuinely believe um, that the number one is this genuinely care value to me, that is the foundation of every other value that you have in your business. If you genuinely care, the others become easy. If you pick integrity, transparency, like you said, different, like all of it comes from this like genuinely caring phase. And if you can get that built into people, man, you're going to have good leaders who don't even know they're leaders. Like they're just leading by example and they're great leaders. But it's always going to be a thing as you scale and grow. And I have no doubt you'll blow this thing past your 24 million goal, and it's going to keep going up and up and up and up. And as it gets bigger, it's harder. And then the message gets mixed. You go to watch Terry, who's a freaking awesome speaker. He'll get you fired up. But if that same thing don't hit to John at the bottom, well, then it didn't get, it didn't get communicated correctly. So,
So I
so
think
yeah. So what Chad would do is he would actually, to make sure the message was clear and not like telephone, where it's changed after you told a bunch of people. He was recording the messages and then sending out the email with the actual video message, to everybody. And then you just kind of hope they actually watch it, so that way there was no mix up on what the messaging was.
I do that with Loom every week. So
That's perfect.
we have end of the month meetings. I speak in front of the whole company. We talk about what we did that month. We have a big wheel where we get people to spin the wheel. I learned that from Eco Plumbers, the
Yeah.
wheel
Here.
spinning thing, and
Yep.
all that. And I try to, yeah, I agree. I think I couldn't agree more. I think you need to find people who genuinely care. If you can find people that really effing care, I mean, that's half the battle, man. I
Have
mean,
you have you ever done the um will and skill like schematic where you'll put the little chart up that says high will, high skill, low skill, and you kind of see where do your people, you have your management team, look at their team, the people that they manage, and say, are they low will, high skill? Are they high will, high skill? You kind of rank them based on their effort and then um, their skill, like what they're good at.
so
And
we
I
no,
mean,
go ahead.
there's different versions of it, right? And
Yeah.
that you can do, but it is a very telling exercise to go through and kind of see where your people rank.
Do you know what we do now? We make everybody take a Wonderlic test when they on when they interview. Dude, if they can't, it's on Indeed. Wonderlic is a person that's like a disc and stuff like that.
Yep.
And my thing is this: if you can't even take 30 minutes to fill out the test, then
Yeah.
don't even apply.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Okay. So that's good because that's a whole other path I could go down. I love doing the personality stuff, discs, color code, enneagrams, you name
Yeah.
it. I'm pretty much every version of them, and I respond well to them because it's helped me be a better uh, manager of people because I understand how they receive what I'm trying to tell them, and I know how to change it based on what their profile is. And that was something I had to learn. I still have to work through and learn. There's some people that I have a difficult time connecting with, not because I don't care about them, Will. I just don't know if I'm giving them the information in the way that they receive it the best.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to shift gears, okay? Because we already kind of blowing through this thing quickly. And I want to talk about your levers, okay? Because we're talking now, into 2026. We're talking about 2026.
Yep.
You got this goal to hit 24 million,
Mhm.
or more, whatever.
We have a stretch goal.
let's talk about the levers. Okay.
Mhm.
So what are the levers that you're like focused on to drive that growth? Like, give me that, like, hey, because you had to have already worked the plan backwards to try and figure out how you're going to
Oh
get
yeah, I
there.
got it. Mhm.
So what are those levers?
So we're opening up our second location in Timonium, Cockeysville. We should be going live, I'd say, in another week or so. We're working on getting our GMB location. Um, Terry, when I did that class with Terry, he told me if you do this right, your HVAC is going to outgrow your plumbing, and I did not see it at that time. It's already That's already happened, and next year will happen even more. Um, our levers are make sure we're holding accountable to the sales process we have in place, right? So we just implemented call by call management. We just hired our first call by call manager. We're in the process of hiring our second one, right? And being calm through the storm, right? Like we know what we're capable of doing, right? We have a plan in place. We have all these Excel spreadsheets, like we're going to add this technician at this time, this CA at this time. We're going to flip this, we're going to get this many leads. We have a very robust marketing strategy and how that money is allocated and staying to that. We're not going to pull back from marketing because I see a lot of people like first thing they want to do is like cut back on we're going to we're going to stay steady on that path. So number one is staying steady on the sales process and the customer service experience. I'd say another thing is staying steady on the marketing, but looking at your marketing all the time, right? Like where are we pacing? We have weekly pacing calls. We do our own internal. I'm very lucky to have a great VP of marketing that came from a very large company in Baltimore. Um, we pour our own pacing reports. All of our calls come in through ServiceTitan. We listen to phone calls, all those kind of things. Um, Look, what's your closing rate? What's your average ticket, right? What's your dollar per lead? We know those KPIs to be successful. If we get the leads and we book at the rate we should and keep our cancellation rate low and our techs close at the dollar per opportunity, and speaking for plumbing, and then if we get the demand calls and the demand ops and we flip like we should and our dollar per lead is like it should, and we talk about those things and reinforce those things and keep focused on the customer experience every single day, we should win.
You kind of sound like Tommy a little bit.
I didn't mean to. I mean, look, I didn't mean to get so.
Listen, it's going to be our first billionaire friend. Like, I
Yeah.
think if you take some direction, not a bad guy to listen to. I mean, but you're right. Like, you hit on some like critical metrics, and the question, like the conversations that we'll have is, how do you make our business as predictable as possible? And you look at the things that you can control and the things that you can't control, right? And like your average ticket is something you can control.
Yes.
Your booking rate is something you can control. Your cost per lead, yeah, unless you're doing it yourself, you kind of have some control, but you have some control via accountability, right? Like
Mhm.
you can pick and choose your partners, and pay attention to your metrics and figure out how to push. So there's some controllability there. The market you can't control. Like the person that's buying from you, you can persuade. You can't control. Like, but there's things that in your business that you can control to create some predictability, and people have been doing it for a long time. It's just usually it's okay, cool. We got the plan in place. It's the accountability of follow up, and it's you run the EOS program to kind of keep everybody in line for it.
You know, one of those levers too is recruiting. Look, I I don't I don't have a school where like Tommy brings in 30 people and a month. It's like we're not there. So recruiting is staffing for that level. We're looking at going to 6 install crews. By April. Having 6 CAs. We might bring on a seventh by July, but having 6 install crews. We have three now that's doubling install, right? Um, HVAC is the big one. It is. It's the big one. And I tell you what, the one of the biggest things is being able to handle the demand when it comes, and to do it the right way. and not fall apart. I mean, that probably is one of the biggest things is when the onslaught does come in, is what do you do with it? How well do you manage that on a day-to-day basis?
Dude,
It's a
you
make or
got,
break.
oh, 100%. Yeah. I
Make
mean,
or break.
well, you listen, like some of the smartest guys I've worked with, and I thank goodness over all these years, I've worked with some of the biggest players in this industry, the legends, like, and I've been able to learn from them as well. And it's the same thing. Like, if they all say the same thing, it must be true. Like, they didn't just get lucky. And you can take big chunks of market share in the summer if you can keep going and you can actually execute. And most people will pull back. You pull back on marketing because we're already busy. I get that. And where are they going to pump money into? Which season? Shoulder season? Probably, because you're trying to make up the gap. Guess what? Cost per lead goes up in. Cost per lead actually goes up in shoulder season and it's lower in peak season. So what they figured out is how can I keep going and take bigger chunks of share when it's busy? Well, you don't do it when it's already in the season. You've planned for it. Well, then the problem is, well, how do I sustain the staff and the head count in the shoulder season? Well, you better have planned for it, right? There is business in shoulder season. You just got to know how to go get it. But I
We've
would say,
done,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
we've done very well. I tell you what, yeah, we didn't do well the first 2 years. This year, last year was better. This year, dude, we've been like people were like we've been doing very well. And I'll tell you how. We focus on we sell a lot of memberships, right?
Good.
I have a person in here who's a membership specialist. We do a membership hotline. We really like try to really curate the relationship with the members, get out to our members, and that's created a lot of opportunity for us. Um, and we're still getting demand. I mean, it's cold outside. We've had a great month so far. It's December, so like look, you want to keep your from what I want to keep my ear to the ground of like I try not to get caught up in the political and whatever and stuff like that. I mean, look, I know those things do um, they have an effect, right?
Yes. Yep.
But that doesn't mean we can't be successful, right? Like it does. I do
Of
not
course.
believe it. Especially like, look, are we offering financing? How quick are we getting to our customer? How are we communicating to our customer? What's the experience and like? Always improving that, right? How are we keeping our members happy? How are we keeping our member retention rate? Because we struggled before with selling memberships and losing them 2 months later, because the members is what feeds the business to be steady all year, coupled in with the demand and everything like that. That's where I think you'd be successful. And then keeping that communication with the customers all year long.
Yeah, I'm just taking a couple notes. You said there's no way I'm going to get through the rest of these questions. We're already like
Sorry.
bumping close to an hour. No, it's
Part
good.
two. Part two's coming soon.
It's yeah, man, you got to work the memberships. One of the best people who ever built a business off memberships is Jamie DiDomenico down in Florida. He was on here a long time ago. Sold a wrench. Great dude, man. I remember he would talk about how they maxed out their memberships. It was so brilliant. Um, I want to uh, talk about your recruiting real quick, and then I'm gonna jump to the last question to kind of tie this thing up in a
Sure.
pretty little bow. Is you what I love about recruiting? Chad loves recruiting. Peterman loves recruiting
Mhm.
um, because it's like a sale.
It's
It's
a
just a
sale.
different type of sale, right? You're trying to
Yeah.
sell, but this is such a talent game, right? To scale, you got to have like a player talent
Mm-hmm.
to really, really scale and trust, and so like the hunt for that is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Rhino has an exceptionally strong leadership team. Like we have recruited some great talent who weren't looking. That's like the fun ones to win. When you go and find the person who wasn't looking and you get them, and we got them. And it's exciting to see them in action this last week when we did our leadership retreat. To watch them all like working together is like one of the coolest freaking feelings, man. Like to see that happening. I'm just gonna sit here and observe because they don't even need me. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. They know their shit. But I love that part of the hunt, and I know that Chad loves it too. And I'll tell you, you mentioned Gainer, obviously one of my close buddies. Who was a massive plumber who added HVAC. He fumbled his way through too until it finally took off. Stay
Mm-hmm.
close to Aaron. And if obviously Aaron's, like I said, he's a close friend of mine. That's an easy one for me. But if you already have a connection with those guys, not if not, let me know. Obviously, Chad knows his shit too, and you got to go. You already connected to Chad.
Yeah.
But let me ask two easy quick two questions. The first one's gonna be easy. The second one, I'm curious to hear what your answer is. The first one's simple, and it's what's the end goal for you? And if there's not an end goal, then just kind of tell me directionally where are you headed? You trying to get to something? Like if it's a number, cool. If it's something else, cool. What is it? Like where are you trying to go? You're 41. I'm
Hmm.
assuming you don't want to work to 60. I'm
Hmm.
out at 50. Regardless, I'm out at 50. I'll just play with my investments. I got 4 more years to like keep grinding my ass off, and I'm done.
Hmm.
Maybe. I'm an entrepreneur, so we'll see. But probably
Yeah.
done. But do you have something like a North Star where you're headed?
You know, in EOS, I couldn't look at a 10-year. 10 years is hard to look at.
Super hard. Yeah, I agree.
It's hard, but we have a 5-year, that
That's
we
good.
place, and doing 8 million in EBITDA and forty million top line, right? I'll talk about 5 years. I will say, look, I get approached a lot. We're in the DMV is like the top five competitive areas in the country, from what I've been told,
Yeah.
right? It's a great market to be at. There's a lot of great customers. There's a ton of potential around here. Our HVAC is still. I think there's a lot of private equity brands around here, big ones, right? And I think we are in a position where we are privately owned right now, and that is a good sales tool as well, and
Yep.
that is a good marketing and promotional tool as well. And we're kind of leaning on that this year. Um, I look, if something does happen, I want people that helped get the company here to be taken care of as well. Like I'm not a stay small, keep it all kind of person.
Good. Yep.
Not at all. And I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at, and honestly, that's a lot of things in this business where people are way, way, way better than I am. But I will say, 40 million, 8 million. I'd like to be doing 20% net profit. Um, Honestly, the 20% above the 40 would be, which I think we'll get there next year, close to it. Um, and I don't know. You know what and I'm going to assume you're probably already doing this now. If I did something, because I've talked to people that have done it and they were miserable because they didn't have a second, they didn't have a second chapter, a second plan. You know,
Yep.
if something if something did like that happen, I need to make sure that I have it. And I understand money can do the, but money doesn't buy purpose if you don't know it. I'm not. Look, I don't play golf, right? Could I play golf? Okay, yeah, get in there. I like doing things. I like building things. That's what I'm learning about myself.
Yep.
Um, and I'd have to have a second
Yeah.
life plan.
Listen, it's okay to not have all this shit figured out too, and you're just kind of like building and going.
Yeah,
I think back to me being at 41. 5 years ago, that was 2020. And honestly, I was like reinvigorated by all of it. Like when COVID hit, I was in the perfect position to
you
execute.
were for sure.
And because I'd had the tenure in the trades and I
Mhm.
understood and I've had like I was in the perfect position and I was having fun. And I didn't even think of bringing on a private equity partner in
Yeah,
2020. It wasn't even on my radar to
yeah,
do that or that I could even do it or how to use it. Like I just didn't know. And so I like the building and the growing and then the seeing the outcome part. And that was the same thing when I did bring on a private equity partner. It was to keep going. It was like, okay, cool. I get to learn
yeah,
this next chapter, and I've learned so much about myself and my capabilities in this last couple of years. And that's why I'm like, but I do have in my head, 50's like 50's it for me. I mean, I'm done at 50 of doing the day to day grind. And I'm set on that. Like, does that mean I'm not going to have businesses? No, I have investments in businesses, and I like that.
yeah,
But I'm not running the day to day of the business, and I enjoy those things. And I enjoy creating relationships out of this stuff. And when I leave, I want to leave and people be like, yeah, man, Chris did this shit right, like and that makes me feel good, right?
Left a
Just
good taste in people's mouths.
being a good dude. So let's finish off with this, bro. It's gonna be a great question. I'm excited to hear your answer.
Okay.
What do you think your mom would say about the man that you've become today?
Uh, I yeah, I don't,
Have you sat and thought about that?
no.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, it's so important to reflect on stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
to like guys like us that go, 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 go. All we're doing is still trying to there's still that little hole.
Oh yeah, it's still there, buddy.
But you think about it's so important to stop and reflect on what you've accomplished and what you've done and get that like feeling from it and like you pull
Yeah,
from that shit when stuff gets hard too. And think about this. Like I think my dad passed away at 49.
yeah.
And he didn't get to see any of this, like
Mhm.
nothing that I've accomplished, like zero, on earth. And I know, like I told you, my dad had been proud of me no matter what. So like, it's kind of hard because like I couldn't really do much wrong to him.
Yeah,
But you think about, you just wonder, I have this thought on what your mom would think about you based on what you've accomplished, but you obviously personally, what you've done, what you've accomplished, the things that you do, and who you are as a human being, and what your heart is. So I'm asking, what do you think your mom says to the man that you've become now?
I I think she would be very proud. I think she'd be extremely proud, especially with the relationship that I repaired with my father, who I speak to every single day, and he's not in the business, and the type of father that I'm trying to be every day, and husband to my wife. I I do think she would be very proud, to be quite honest.
Good for you, bro. Yeah, I don't.
I
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't really. I know that sounds crazy. I just maybe it's one of those things where I still am not proud of myself. I'm not the pat on the back kind of guy. I'm just not. I'm
I get
always whatever. Yeah.
it, dude. I can tell you, I can honestly
Well,
relate.
thank you for asking me that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
I
appreciate
really
that.
kind of wanted to try and like give you that.
After the camera turns off, I'm probably gonna cry in a corner for 10
I,
minutes.
was trying to
I,
give you that
yeah,
moment, dude.
I appreciate. I'm trying to hold it together,
I
Chris.
get
So
it, man. I get it. But that's why I asked you that question. Is I wanted to give you that moment, and it is important to reflect on. You know, you got to walk down memory lane a bit, dude, because you get to see the end result of all the everything that you've been through and where you sit today, knowing you still got part of the journey to go.
yeah,
But like in a lot of ways, you could say you did it. You did it, dude. A $17 million business is a very, very good business. Very, very good business. A $10 million business, very, very good business. Like, let's not gloss over these numbers. Like, I know these are crazy. Like, you know how many people do that shit? Like, very,
not
very
many from
small
what I
numbers.
understand. No, not many.
So, but it is important, I believe, because our brains go back to certain feelings, right? And pull from different moments in our lives that have created feelings. That's what also creates some of the shit that we do.
Hmm.
It's important for you as you scale to 40
Hmm.
to be able to reflect on what you did to 24, 25, wherever you end up. But 17, like just remember that. And I think it's important for you to have that, which is why I wanted to ask you that question. So,
That
um,
was a great question. I really, really appreciate that.
well, you're welcome. Listen, I appreciate you coming on here, giving me time. I appreciate you waiting on me. I know I had to shift this fuck around a
Ah,
little.
dude, you're good, man. I get it. It's all
Yeah,
good.
it's
It was a pleasure. I was very humbled to be asked. I really do appreciate it very much.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I appreciate you being a listener. And I'm excited, man. One that we got to connect, and two that I get to watch your journey from here. And I think I actually owed you an email now that I think about it for Rhino X. I don't think I ever sent that to you, did I?
You didn't, but if you could, I would welcome that for
Okay, dude.
sure.
When
I'd
I
welcome that.
okay, listen. I, when I leave here, I'm going to go straight to my office, and I'm going to send you that email because otherwise I'll forget again. And it's not
100%, dude. That's why I didn't take it. I was like, dude, I'm the same. I get it, dude. I get it.
Well, listen, bro, congratulations on building a good business and what you're doing and turning like things around, taking a shitty situation and making something fantastic out of it. It's a great example for people to hear. I'm glad I got to share that story for you. And and to our listeners, I mean, like, I love being able to share stories like Will. It's always cool to kind of hear adversity. Everybody wants to hear, like, it's cool to talk about the good shit. Everybody wants to hear the bad shit and how'd you get through it and
Yeah.
what's things that you fix. And there's so much power in that, and there's so much relatability to it, right? There's sometimes it's not relatable to talk about how big of a business you are because they're not there, but the journey you can absolutely relate to, and that can motivate you and move you. And so to the listeners, let that motivate you to get you to wherever your goal is in 2026. Like, you can get through anything if you got the right perspective
Mhm.
and you just fucking take action and you just go. And if you don't know, you go and connect with somebody who can teach you. Will went to Terry. He learned from Terry. Terry's a great human being, and I would highly recommend doing anything with him. Like, he's a fantastic guy. But if it's not Terry, pick a group. They're out there. Find a guy.
Yeah.
Find a group of people. Reach out to another. Reach out to Chad. Reach out to Gainer. Reach out to Tommy. Reach out to me. Reach out to whoever will connect you with somebody to get you down that path. Keep listening to the podcast, but do something, right? Because
Dude,
that's
can I say something real quick?
you sure can, man.
Look, I never give up. And if I can do it, anybody can do it because there's nothing special. Like, I mean, coming from what I've been, if I can do it, anybody can do it for sure.
That's the perfect way to close, bro. So to our listeners, you ain't got to do everything, but damn it, you got to do something. No 0 days.